Hello, and welcome back to Chasing Masculinity, the podcast where we explore what it means to live as authentic, purpose-driven men in today's world. I'm your host, Colton Wutzke, and if you've been following along, you know that here we're all about helping men embrace their true identity, honor their responsibilities, and live with discipline and strength. In today's episode, we're diving into Rule 21. To be a man is to be vocal about your true self. Now, this is a topic that's foundational to living a life aligned with who you're truly meant to be. We often talk about masculinity and authenticity, but it's easy to let societal pressures and fears stop us from speaking up about who we really are and what we truly believe. But here's the thing, being vocal about your true self is one of the most powerful things a man can do. It's not just about talking for the sake of talking, but about aligning your words with your true beliefs and living a life that is unapologetically yours. The world can try to tell you who you should be, but you get to decide what that looks like. And to kick things off today, we're going to explore a powerful biblical story that resonates deeply with this idea, the story of Jonah and the whale. Most of us are familiar with this story, especially growing up in the faith, but there's so much more to learn from Jonah's journey than just the surface level lesson. His experience speaks directly to rejecting your true calling and avoiding your responsibilities, and it's a powerful reminder of what happens when we refuse to be vocal about who we really are and the duties we're called to fulfill. So today we'll unpack how Jonah's story connects with the idea of being authentic, vocal, and true to yourself, even in the face of fear and adversity. Let's get into it. So let's dive into Jonah and the whale, a biblical lesson on authenticity. So to summarize the Jonah story, Jonah had a divine calling. Jonah was called by God to deliver a message of repentance to the people of Nineveh who were living in sin. Jonah, however, runs away from this literal divine command, boarding a ship to Tarshish, attempting to escape from God's call. But then a fierce storm strikes the ship, and the crew, realizing that the storm is divine punishment, throws Jonah overboard after he admits that he is running from God. Jonah is then swallowed by a very large fish, often referred to as a whale, and spends 3 days in its belly, where he repents and prays for deliverance. Then that leads to Jonah's repentance and obedience. After his repentance, Jonah is vomited out onto dry land by the fish, and he finally heeds to God's call, going to Nineveh to deliver the message, which leads to the city's repentance and salvation. Jonah's eventual obedience highlights the transformation from resistance to acceptance of his true calling. So, how does this connect with the topic of today's message, which is Rule 21, to be a man is to be vocal about your true self? Well, Jonah first rejected his calling. Jonah's flight represents the human tendency to avoid uncomfortable truths or duties, often due to fear or the desire for just comfort. Fear of conflict or a desire for comfort can lead people, especially men, to suppress their true selves, either by avoiding the responsibility or by suppressing their personal beliefs. So where does this parallel to modern-day application? Many men today choose to hide their true beliefs or avoid difficult conversations to avoid conflict or discomfort. Think of how men could hide their political or religious beliefs or avoid speaking up about their true self because of the potential for rejection, judgment, and discomfort. I think we saw this peak out at cancel culture a few years ago, where if you were not aligned with whatever the people who were pushing what they wanted mainstream to be, you were immediately canceled. If you had any public opinion that was not aligned with what cancel culture was pushing, you would legitimately be canceled. And there was some immediate impacts, including your career, your well-being, your community ostracizing you. So there was a time when, thankfully, this is on the decline and there's been a major pushback against this. There was a time where there was a realistic and tangible fear for speaking out about your true self. This avoidance, this mirrors Jonah's initial rejection of his calling, where his fear of the confrontation of the people of Nineveh led him to flee rather than to confront the difficult task that God gave him. So what are the lessons from Jonah? First, true morality and integrity. The lesson from Jonah is clear. True morality and integrity come from embracing and vocalizing your true calling and identity. Now, Jonah got a literal divine calling, but this applies to us for how we are in our true selves, how we are called, what we truly believe, the pillars of life that establish who we are as a person, and not masking or facading those based on whatever culture or whatever environment you're in just so you can fit in or avoid that confrontation. So that living authentically means aligning your actions with those true beliefs, even if it's uncomfortable or challenging or has the risk of costing you. There is a cost of living inauthentically as well. Jonah's attempt to run away caused personal suffering and confusion until he aligned his actions with his purpose. Similarly, men today face inner turmoil and spiritual discomfort when they hide behind that facade. True integrity comes when men embrace who they really are and refuse to hide behind inauthentic personas. It's about being vocal and unapologetic about your true self. So this leads me to the consequences of rejecting one's calling. Living inauthentically will lead to consequences, even if it means comfort in the moment. There's going to be personal suffering. So rejecting your true calling or hiding your true beliefs leads to internal conflict, which can result in the stress, anxiety, moral confusion. Think of a man who suppresses his true beliefs. He might feel disconnected from his purpose, leading to the dissatisfaction and confusion about their identity. That will actually lead to the genuine disconnect from his identity if you live in that facade too long. And there is a facade in silence. A facade is built when men mask their true selves to fit into these societal expectations. This creates that internal dissonance where the outward behavior doesn't match the internal beliefs. The consequences of maintaining this facade is over time, this dissonance will cause the emotional and spiritual fatigue as men feel disconnected from their true selves. And there's also going to be spiritual and moral erosion. So denying your true self is going to lead to spiritual discomfort because you are being disingenuine. You're going to lose clarity and become detached from your core beliefs, which diminishes your moral compass. Living inauthentically erodes your soul. So the cost of living in that facade, you have the impact of personal integrity. If you suppress your true beliefs, whether political, religious, or personal, because of fear of judgment, you are sacrificing your integrity. There's also a psychological toll because as you suppress your authentic self, you start to lose your ability to act morally because you are actually disconnecting yourself from your values. So there's an actual disconnect from your morals, which are going to guide your day-to-day actions if you're living in a facade and rejecting your true self. So how can we visualize what this facade is? I like to think of it as silence in the face of truth is like digging a pit. Each unspoken truth is adding more dirt, gradually trapping the individual in this false identity. So the longer this silence continues, the deeper the hole becomes, and the more difficult it is to climb out of the trap of inauthenticity. So what are some examples of the rejection of this authenticity? Well, there's cultural pressures. Men often conform to what society expects. It's easy. Whether it's avoiding confrontational opinions or hiding beliefs about true self to avoid social rejection, it's just the easy path, and it often feels like there's no downside to it. The dangers of silence, however, is staying silent on key issues doesn't just harm your personal integrity, but it limits your personal growth and reduces your ability to actually contribute authentically to the world. So that was the consequences of rejecting one's callings, but what about just being silent? What does the facade of silence look like? Well, silence is like self-suppression. Silence is a choice to hide. Silence isn't neutral. It's often a choice to suppress your true beliefs and desires. Men often choose silence because, well, it just feels safer, as it avoids confrontation and potential rejection. However, this choice will come at a cost of authenticity. Now, that may seem like a easy trade-off. Okay, I become less authentic in the moment, but I avoid this risk of confrontation or degraded friendships or whatever that would look like, whatever sort of negative emotional impact that would have in the moment. All I have to do is pay a little bit of inauthenticity and I can escape free. That sounds like a good trade-off. But what if you're choosing to stay silent on faith-based topics out of fear of that social backlash? Over time, the choice to remain silent erodes personal authenticity and creates the disconnection from your true self. So those long-term effects of silence, there's going to be a psychological and spiritual toll. If you are constantly suppressing your true opinions, whether in the workplace, at church, family settings, you're going to start to feel like a shadow of yourself. Your authenticity will be lost. There's going to be an internal conflict that grows as you realize that you're compromising your own values just to fit in. And it feels harmless because you're not even agreeing. Maybe you're literally just being silent. But this could lead to feelings of regret, guilt, and a dissatisfaction in your own life. You are living in a self-imposed prison. Silence over time becomes a self-imposed prison, where men lose their voice and become more disconnected from who they truly are. The longer you stay silent, the weaker your sense of self becomes, leading to a life of inauthenticity and moral compromise. You are losing the ability to read your moral compass. So how do we overcome silence? Well, you have to recognize that there is a fear of judgment. The primary motivation behind silence is most often fear of judgment or fear of whatever conflict that will cause. Recognizing this fear is going to be the first step to overcoming it. So what are some practical steps to express your beliefs? Well, start small. Begin by expressing your true opinions in safe environments like close friends, family, and trusted mentors. You have to be able to engage in open dialogue. So finding those communities like church groups or supportive social circles or mentors. And then reflect on the long-term impacts. Consider, what are the long-term impacts or consequences of staying silent? What are you sacrificing? What could you actually gain from vocalizing your beliefs? Now, there's the other side of this coin, and that is balancing being vocal with humility. So there's humility in expressing your beliefs, and there's a very strong importance of humility. While being vocal about your true self is crucial, it should always be done with the spirit of humility. Humility ensures that your voice doesn't come off as self-righteous or condescending. Instead, it should reflect respect for others, their views, or even when you disagree. A man who speaks out about faith, politics, or personal values, but does so in a way that welcomes dialogue rather than shutting others down, his approach doesn't force his beliefs on others, but invites respectful conversation. I like the C.S. Lewis quote, "Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less." This means that being vocal about yourself doesn't require putting others down or making them feel inferior. It's about standing firm while respecting others' autonomy. So how can we avoid this self-righteousness and its pitfalls? When you are expressing your beliefs, it's crucial to avoid coming across as morally superior. Your self-righteousness turns the conversation into a competition or confrontation when you're more focused on being right rather than on understanding or maybe just simply educating others about who you are. So the key point here is expressing beliefs must be about sharing truth, not proving others wrong. This ensures integrity in your voice and authenticity in your approach. So how do we draw the line between conviction and arrogance? Conviction comes from a place of personal belief that is rooted in truth, whereas arrogance is about dismissing others or trying to impose your views as absolute. So conviction without compassion breeds arrogance. So the importance of humility in conviction is not to shrink from your beliefs, but to speak them in a way that recognizes the humanity of others. Use Jesus as a model. Jesus expressed his truth clearly and boldly, but with compassion and empathy for others. He didn't hide the truth, but offered it in a way that people could receive it, even if it was uncomfortable. You also have to balance truth with empathy. So, speaking the truth in love, this is biblically ideal for how we should be expressing our beliefs and being able to engage with others. I like to think of Ephesians 4:15, speaking the truth in love. We are to grow up in every way into him who is the head, into Christ. This illustrates the need for a balance between speaking the truth and extending love. So as a practical tip, before speaking your mind, ask yourself, how can I share this truth in a way that promotes growth, understanding, and respect for the other person's perspective? So as a man, we have duties. What is the duty in vocalizing one's truth? Your words are actually going to reflect your true character. So think of words as a reflection of your heart. Matthew 12:34-35 says, "For the mouth speaks what the heart is full of." What you say and how you say it reveals the state of your character. The words you speak are a mirror of what's inside. What you say is what you are. The way you vocalize your truth speaks volumes about your inner moral compass and authenticity. You do have a moral responsibility to speak your truth. When men hide or suppress their beliefs, they forfeit the moral responsibility to speak truth and contribute authentically to society. The more you speak your truth, the more you align yourself with your core values, and the more you encourage others to do the same. Speaking your truth is a way of growing into your best self. Every time you voice what you believe, you sharpen your character and build that confidence in your integrity. And this kind of requires a journey of self-discovery. So the act of being vocal about your beliefs is not a one-time event, but a process of continuous growth. Each conversation and expression of truth helps you discover more about your authentic self. Over time, as men speak about their core values in a variety of settings, whether work, relationships, or just in general public life, they are painting a clearer picture about what their identity is and what they view their mission in the world to be. And there's a beauty in authenticity. The more vocal you are about your true self, the clearer it becomes and the more genuine your character becomes. So self-discovery happens in the act of living out your truth. And when you speak your truth, you're not only being authentic for yourself, but you're creating a space for others to speak theirs, leading to a stronger, more honest society. So going back to the story of Jonah, when have you run away from your responsibilities or calling? Think of even just small examples, avoiding difficult conversations at work or family obligations or social commitments due to fear. Recognizing those situations where you've chosen to remain silent out of fear or conflict or discomfort are going to help you establish or at least recognize the pattern of where you've kind of fallen short in the past. And then you need to face that fear. So exercise bravery by recognizing the moments when you're tempted to run away because of difficult truths or responsibilities like Jonah did. Growth comes when we confront fear head on rather than retreating into silence or avoidance. And you can assess your comfort zone. So challenge yourself. Do you challenge yourself to speak out or engage in uncomfortable situations, or is this something that you need to work on? Are you often inclined to stick with the safe and familiar instead of confronting the things that challenge your beliefs? Recognize tendencies to suppress truth and avoid discomfort, and make conscious efforts to step outside of your comfort zone. And to do all this, you need to identify what your core beliefs are. What are your non-negotiable values? Identify the values and beliefs that are so core to your identity that you would be willing to speak up even when you're challenged. These core beliefs are the foundation for the lines in the sand that you need to draw. These beliefs will help you be vocal about your true self as they form the foundation of the truth that you must speak. So I want to take a moment here to break away from this application. What are we supposed to do with being vocal about ourselves? Are we supposed to confront everything and be the guy that's constantly arguing? No, absolutely not. Speaking up about who you are, being vocal about your true self, what Rule 21 is about, is not about confrontation for the sake of confrontation. It's not about constantly talking about yourself and what you believe. It's about standing firm in your values. It's about not letting your world around you push their beliefs onto you. It's about truly being vocal about yourself and not allowing yourself to go with the flow of where society is pushing you. It's about finding these core values, identifying your core beliefs, and that is where you are refusing to be silent. That is where you must be vocal about your true self. So going back, the last thing that you can do then to apply being vocal about your true self is having a conscious effort to speak your truth. So reflecting on those moments of silence. Think about those past times where you've stayed silent about your true beliefs, especially when it was out of fear to avoid that conflict. And what were the long-term consequences of that silence? Then plan on a future commitment. Plan to be more vocal about your true beliefs in situations where you have historically stayed silent. I want to leave you with one crucial thought. Being vocal about your true self is essential for maintaining your moral integrity, personal growth, and authenticity as a man. When we stay silent or hide behind facades, we risk losing touch with who we really are, which creates inner conflict and a loss of identity. Remember, silence is not the solution. It might feel comfortable in the moment, but over time, it only leads to a gradual erosion of your true self. We've all experienced it. The more we suppress our true beliefs, the harder it becomes to recognize who we really are. Living authentically means we're stepping up, speaking out, and embracing our beliefs, even when it's uncomfortable or others might disagree. So that is your call to action. Take a moment to reflect on the areas of your life where you've been silent, where you are not being vocal about your true beliefs. And today, make that commitment to start small. Take one step to express your authentic self, even if that is just self-exploration to figure out what your true identity or your core beliefs are. Whether you can use that in conversation or a social media post or just standing firm in a difficult situation. It doesn't have to be a massive shift, but every step towards that authenticity is a step towards living a more honest and integrated life. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. How are you being vocal about your true self? What steps are you taking to stand firm in your beliefs? Share your experiences with the Chasing Masculinity community. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in today. If you haven't already, subscribe and leave a review, and make sure to share this episode with someone who needs to hear it. And as always, keep chasing masculinity.